Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the United Stand. My name is Levin2K. Looking forward to this one. Looking forward to this one because, as always, there seems to be a lot going on in the realm of Manchester United news, and we are still looking for that permanent manager. Of course, there's plenty of talk about it actually just ending up being an interim manager. We will dive into things, of course. Poch versus Rangnick. Reports suggesting that Rangnick is the favourite, but also Poch is very, very much linked to us and somebody who we've been in pursuit of in for the past 6 years. I saw Adam Crafton, who does great work, by the way, and he referenced it being like a 6-year pursuit of Poch, and I was like, do Man United know that, like, he was unemployed for like one of them 6 years, and so they could have just got him if they really, really were pursuing him for 6 years. Anyway, we'll get into it. But we'll start off with what Samuel Luckhurst had to say about Ralf Rangnick. Samuel Luckhurst said, Ralf Rangnick is believed to be MUFC's preferred candidate for an interim role. A German source said Rangnick wants to decide everything. The last word written in block capitals. Now, when it comes to Ralf Rangnick, I've spoken about how I feel about him. He is very much somebody who is almost like a genius of football, very influential in the modern German game and just modern football in general, right? Very much has influenced some of the top coaches that we see in world football bossing it right now. And someone that is exciting. The prospect of him coming into our club in any capacity is exciting. Now, what I will say is, especially with what that report from Samuel Luckhurst says, where it's like he wants to control everything, that's very much true. Rangnick is not this guy who wants to just come in and simply be a manager. He's far exceeded that now at this stage in his career. And I've spoken about this a lot on stream and talked to people about this. Rangnick I don't even think Rangnick wants to come in and be like a director of football. Like, that's not even, like, if Rangnick was to come in, he's the kind of guy, he wants to come in and he wants Ed Woodward's job. Like, he wants to be the chairman now. Like, that's the kind of autonomy and control he'd want to have. So when we were getting reports suggesting that, like, oh, he's going to come in as the interim and be director of football, as much as it was good news to me, it sounded good. It wasn't something I too much bought into and believed. And you look at Manchester United right now, they recently did like a structural adjustment, a structural hoo-ha, right? It didn't really change much because it was all the same people, just given different job titles and roles. Some of those job titles and roles, for one, don't seem to be meaningful in any way. You look at Darren Fletcher. Have any of you ever seen a technical director more like a coach in your life? Like, I've never seen a technical director who is on the bench shouting instructions, laying out cones. Like, I've personally just never seen it. You can tell me he's a technical director all you want. Seems more like a coach. John Murtaugh doesn't seem to have the levels of power that other, football directors would have at other clubs. It does seem to be, there was a structural change, but doesn't seem to be significant. Even with that said, though, Rangnick would want to come in and do a structural change. Like, Rangnick would come in and be like, nah. We got to do things properly here. We need to be far more competent in who we employ. And I just don't think that the Glazers would buy into that. I don't think the people above him would buy into that. I don't think that's something they'd be interested in. And for that reason, I just don't think Rangnick is a realistic option at the moment. And I think as well, people need to consider he is actually in a job. Like, Rangnick is in a job, and it's a job he just started like this summer. He's over in Russia. So, yeah, like, as much as I'd love Rangnick, I don't see that quite happening. Now, what I would say is, I can't remember where the report's from, but I remember seeing something and reading something where it suggested, like, Rangnick's approach to, like, management now is, like, he'd only do it in an emergency. Like, unless he wouldn't manage unless he absolutely had to in a certain situation. And so this idea that he'd come in to be the interim, and then if he does a good job, we'd offer him a higher role in the club after, I just don't think that is going to work for Rangnick. He would want the guarantee that he has this higher job, and since we can't find a manager right now, he'd go, okay, fine, I'll interim until the summer or whatever. That's more realistic, based off of everything we know about Rangnick. Of course, Man United can want what they want all they like, but unless Rangnick wants to play ball, I just don't quite see that happening. Sally says, Levin, he would leave his current position for Manchester United. We can say that, but for what position in Manchester United? If you're saying Rangnick is going to come in to just be an interim manager, he's not going to do that. Like, he's not. He's turned down interim jobs in arguably sort of better situations, right? He was allegedly, not allegedly, he was reportedly offered the interim job at Chelsea when they sacked Frank Lampard. They don't want that. Turn that down, right? He's not going to come to be an interim manager. He doesn't want to just be a manager right now. He wants to be a higher up executive. He wants to have more power and structure in how the club is run. And I don't see him getting that, right? Everything about our current situation suggests that Ed Woodward is the chairman and he's going to be, succeeded by Richard Arnold. And we'll reference Richard Arnold actually a bit later because his name did come up in some of Adam Crafton's reports. So, yeah, I would love Rangnick to come in and have that level of power because I think it's the kind of thing we just need in general. But it seems very unlikely at the current moment in time that he's going to come in and be given that level of power. I don't think that's going to happen. And of course, yeah, he does have tactics. He does have everything. Once again, I want to shout out everyone that's here right now. We got some people in here. If you're watching live, if you're watching after, be sure to like the video. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you guys on this morning's show. We got some more reports though. Samuel Luckhurst also said MUFC have approached Paris Saint-Germain for Mauricio Pochettino and are unlikely to be discouraged by rejection. The onus is now on Pochettino to inform his present employers he wishes to have his employment terminated. Now, this is the kind of thing that, we start to get into a territory that becomes a bit boring almost, right? In terms of, we are going to start to hear this where it's like, yeah, United, we really want, Pochettino, like we're really keen, we really want him. But unless Pochettino, says, oh, I want to leave, it's not going to happen. It reminds me a lot actually of what happened with Jadon Sancho, it feels like a couple summers now ago, right? Where it was like, yeah, we want Sancho, we're willing to give the money, but if he doesn't say he wants to leave, it's not going to happen. Like, it's starting to feel like that. And I'm not too sure how likely it is that Poch will outright say he doesn't want to be there anymore. We'll get to some of the stuff Adam Crafton said, because I think that is more insightful on Poch's current mentality and mind state, according to reports and sources, of course. And Adam Crafton said, look, senior PSG sources stress that their preference is to avoid losing Pochettino in the middle of the campaign, but the hierarchy is not quite as befuddled to him as they were in the summer months when they shut down an exit for Real Madrid and Tottenham. Now, that is obviously something that I don't know how to take that, because we know that PSG are willing to let go of a manager mid-season. That's not something that they won't do outright. They obviously did it literally last summer with Tuchel. But there is an element to thinking about what happened in summer for them, because in summer, Tottenham were interested in Pochettino, Real Madrid were also interested in Pochettino, and PSG shut that down, right? They that wasn't something that they were quite interested in. And so it does make you think, okay, look, they shut it down in summer. Things have changed a bit, you could argue, but unless they have that ready replacement lined up, are things that likely to change again, would be the question. And, a lot of PSG people and fans that I've seen speak were very high and excited on the prospect of them getting Zidane and Zidane coming in if Pochettino was to be let go. But some of the recent reports as well have also suggested that Zidane, he's not made his mind up, right? A lot of the reports right now have suggested that even though Zidane is probably more interested in that PSG job than he was with, Man United, he is still waiting to see what happens with France. He still wants some time away from management. And so if PSG can't go in and just get Zidane like that, I think they are going to be really hard to negotiate with in terms of trying to get Pochettino out of his situation at PSG. I feel like that is going to be something that will be incredibly difficult. We already saw in summer, if PSG don't want to let somebody go, they ain't letting them go, right? Real Madrid, come in. 160 mil Mbappe right now. Take it or leave it. Nah, sorry. We got Qatari money. Sorry, we don't want to let him go. He's not going. Sorry. Tough. And there's nothing, you can really do, it seems, if PSG want to hold on to someone. You also have to remember that they did extend his contract, right, to 2023. I think his contract would have been ending at the end of the season, but they very much extended it. And so it seems like they are okay on this path. Now, we will mention some of the tensions that seem to exist at PSG, because in Adam Crafton's report on The Athletic, a great report, by the way, I recommend you go read it if you can. He talks about how when it comes to the relationship with players at PSG, Poch has a good relationship. He said that there was a source that was actually confused that, that certain players were confused at the reports that he was going to potentially leave to Man United because the players and him get along so well. I think there's this narrative that, oh, he can't control people at PSG, he can't control the egos. And to an extent, yeah, he seemingly can't get Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi to run. But then I'd pose the question to you, how many managers in world football could get 3 people who characteristically don't do that much running and defending to all of a sudden start doing that? In my opinion, I don't think there's anyone. But, you might argue 1 or 2. And, you sort of see what I'm getting at here. So, he seems to have a good relationship. There's reports suggesting that he has a really good relationship with Messi, that Messi called him when he wanted to go to PSG and, that helped him part of his decision. So his relationship with the players seems to be great. Of course, there are reports as well that also suggested, look, he's still living in a hotel in Paris. And so there's tension because of that. I think that's quite overplayed, right? I think that's incredibly overplayed. Yeah, he's living in a hotel, but I can assure you that hotel was a deluxe suite where he's basically just living in like a really nice apartment. Like it's, I think people are going, oh, he's still living in like a crammed, Premier Inn somewhere in Paris. It's like, no, the brother's living in a really, really, nice deluxe apartment. Like he's the hotel thing to me is just a bit exaggerated. So yeah, I don't think there's much in way of, actually his relationships with certain people. I think where the relationship probably isn't the best is with their director, Leonardo, who seems to just not have great relationships with any manager that comes in. And that makes it incredibly difficult for any manager. That does seem to be something that potentially is turbulent. And maybe that's one that will break down and make way for this sort of a move to happen. But again, I just don't think we can sort of count on that. Look, we saw yesterday PSG have problems. As much as they are star-studded, they are definitely not a team that is a clear-cut Champions League winning team right now. They definitely, there's some issues there. You look at Pochettino as a manager and how he wants to play football, he can't necessarily do that in his current situation. And look, as a whole, PSG is a very weird one, right? Where they're desperate to win a Champions League. They will do anything to win a Champions League, to the point where, pardon me, managers in that job know that if they can't win the Champions League, they're not going to have a job, right? I remember seeing yesterday, there was a report that suggested like Poch actually knows himself, like if he doesn't win the Champions League, his job's basically done, right? The problem is as well, though, PSG is that they want to win one, but they want to win it in their way. And that can be incredibly difficult for anybody coming in. So yeah, outside of some tactical issues and maybe a turbulent relationship with PSG's director, it doesn't seem to be anything too conclusive to suggest that he want to get out of there right now. We got some super chats here. Drew Valoon says, imagine Poch turning up to manage Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, fresh from smallest room or at the local Premier Inn. You know what I'm saying though? It's like, I think people saw the whole hotel thing and started getting excited, like, rah, he's living in a hotel. It's like, no, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure his living situation is fine. Of course, he's living away from his, wife and kids. I think one of his sons actually is on the PSG staff as well. I think one of his sons is like a fitness coach, but his wife and kids and other kids at least are away, which obviously is always going to be hard for any manager. But yeah, I think people are playing too much into that. Alex says PSG are in talks with Zidane coming from the BBC. Yeah, like that is something to watch out for. I think if PSG can find an agreement with Zidane to bring Zidane in right now, I do think they will make way for Poch to leave. From everything I know about it, that seems to be the case right now. Hi, Levin, can you do an Ollie karaoke impression, please? Thank you. You know what? I'd love to, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to save myself the embarrassment. And when Mark's back, you can get into that. I'm sure he'll do a much better one than I ever could. Adam Crafton also said, Pochettino's preference has been for MUFC to buy him out of his deal and allow him to begin a new project. It is understood that Antonio Conte ascertained that United's preferred option, would be Pochettino, which escalated his decision to join Tottenham. That's pretty interesting. MUFC have come to the view that Pochettino would be the ideal manager, a hands-on training ground manager who would relish improving players. Pochettino didn't push for an exit last summer, as he concluded it would be wise to hold out for Real Madrid or MUFC. It's no secret that he likes Manchester United. It's no secret. Like, it's clear he likes Manchester United. I think it's about creating a pathway to him getting to that job in a way that doesn't become too hectic. McLarma says PSG should do everything to get Zidane now to win Champions League. More chance to win it than with Poch. Zidane can leave afterwards for the France job. That's a great case. Maybe you should go speak to Leonardo at PSG and let him know that, big man. Maybe you can be the one to give him the right advice. Lewis says, Levin, mate, you're great. I appreciate that, brother. I do appreciate that. Yo, this is off topic, but my idol Pessi is finished, says Sauce. Look, I know I've seen a lot of Pessi slander on my timeline yesterday, and I know the Messi fans ain't really feeling it. They're not too happy about it. So if you fall on the side of Ronaldo when it comes to that debate, enjoy your dub. Enjoy your dub while you can. Now, look, I think it's funny that we're in this situation now where Pochettino clearly has an interest in Manchester United, but if there's no clear pathway for him getting that job now, that obviously is going to be something that, does come up a bit later, right? Where maybe it's in summer we address this. The only thing then is that if it's summer, you'd think we have more options, right? If it's summer, maybe we can, bring in a Ten Hag, or maybe Brendan Rodgers is more likely to move because it's not mid-season, that kind of thing. So I almost feel bad for Poch. Like, if Poch really wants this job, I almost feel bad for him, because the best time for him to get it is now, when there's no real clear-cut competition for the permanent job. There are some interim options that we will discuss that have been reported, but there's no clear-cut competition for the actual job, whereas in summer, there will be. And if something doesn't get done in the next couple of days and weeks, it just will continue to look, more and more unlikely at this stage. Poch overrated, just a Tottenham reject. Yeah, but if you talk to a lot of Tottenham fans, they wish they never sacked him. So, we can sit here and make these absolute statements as well. Like, this is something that a lot of people like to do, especially on football Twitter and stuff. Like, we can sit here and make these absolute statements like Poch will never be a winner. He's absolute garbage. But it's it doesn't really mean much. If you're not given much actual specific insight and analysis as to why you're saying the things you're saying, it doesn't really hold much weight or value, to be fair. But, give it to Carricky. You know what my biggest fear, guys? My biggest fear right now is that we almost do a part two of what happened with Oli, where we can't really bring anyone in. Carrick gets a result or two, and so they're Carrick will be the interim till the end of the season. And they won't make the mistake of giving him the job before the season ends, like they did with Oli, but they'll wait till the end of the season, then they will give him the job on a permanent. Now, it's funny because we've also been linked to Rudy Garcia and Lucien Favre, and they've been two names that have been linked as interim options. I believe Andy Mitten reported that we actually held a meeting with Rudy Garcia, which was interesting. So, those are two options to watch out for in terms of interims. And I think they wouldn't be bad interim options, right? If they were strictly interim options, I don't think they'd be bad. I think they'd be able to come in, get a tune, especially out of certain players. You'd think with Lucien that he'd come in and see Sancho and be like, hey, Sancho, good to see you again. And that's an instant, sort of great relationship there. The problem that I have, my biggest fear with an actual interim, if they bring in somebody to strictly be the interim, my biggest fear is that person comes in as the interim. They come in on their own, or maybe with one staff member. They work with Carrick, Phelan, McKenna, because that's the staff that's already there. They play it out till the end of the season. They have a decent season. Let's say they have a decent season. They make us a lot better of a team. We still might not be winning anything, but they make us just a better team in general. At the end of the season, Woodward or whoever's there at the time goes, well, they just did a brilliant job. Plus, they were able to use the staff that Oli had, so we don't have to sack a bunch of staff and bring new people in. You get the job. And that is my biggest fear right now with anyone who was, who potentially comes in as an interim manager. Like, that, I think, is the one thing to watch out for, where the club might try, pardon me, the club might try pull a fast one on us. That would be one of the biggest fears if we were to sort of continue that way. Love your voice, Levin, and your shows. I appreciate that. A lot of people don't like my voice. I guess they just don't like deep voices. I don't use a voice changer, by the way, for the people wondering. I just have a really deep voice. Ralph Rangnick should be the interim. Look, Ralph Rangnick is someone that has a clear footballing philosophy and idea, but Ralph Rangnick coming in as the interim coach doesn't seem likely unless he's given a job higher up in the club, because he doesn't want to be a manager anymore. Like, I think a lot of people don't know this about him. Like, he doesn't want to manage. He wants to be, you know, he doesn't want to manage the team specifically. He wants to be managing the whole club as a whole, the football inside of the club. And he definitely deserves that, right? You look at the work he's done with, you know, Red Bull, and, you know, even as a manager, the work he did, and then the work he did with the Red Bull organization, where he was the director of 2 football teams at once. Like, I don't think people appreciate that, right? He was literally the director of Salzburg and Leipzig at the same time for a period of, you know, however long. So, you know, he's very good at what he does. And he'd come in, given a higher role with more responsibility, with more power, he'd come in and no doubt he'd turn things around at the club, right? No doubt in my mind. But I just don't see that happening. Like, I don't see Ed Woodward giving him that level of power, especially when Adam Crafton was actually suggesting in his report that, you know, Richard Arnold is involved in the process of finding a new manager. And it's good, actually. We'll talk about that for a second, guys, because I always said, right, if you've been watching the channel and you've seen me on the channel before, I always said, I'm worried about what's going to happen when Ollie is gone. Not because I miss Ollie by any means. I hope Ollie's all right, but, you know, I don't miss him being a manager, but simply because the people who are in charge of hiring a new manager, I don't trust whatsoever. And based off of what Adam Crafton said, there's a lot of people involved in the process. Adam Crafton said Ed Woodward's involved, along with Richard Arnold. Matt Judge is helping. John Mertz is helping. He even referenced that if they need help, Sir Alex is willing to help. And I'm like, oh, look, guys, please, let's not do this. A lot of people seem to be involved who, quite frankly, don't have a great track record of making good managerial decisions, and quite frankly, just don't know much about football like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't trust these people to make the right decision for our football club, because for the most part, they've been making wrong decisions non-stop. And that's just the harsh truth. Levin, what do you think about Sancho? I love Sancho, man. I was so happy for him. I was so happy for him when he scored. I was absolutely buzzing. I knew the time would come, and hopefully we can see some more great performances from him. Van der Sar CEO, Rangnick DOF, Ten Hag manager. Rangnick wouldn't want to be DOF in that situation. Like, he'd want to be CEO in that situation. High 11 Poch success rate at Spurs was 54.27%, and Ollie at United was 54%. At PSG, he has a 60%. Not criticizing him, but do you think we have a better alternative as a permanent manager? So what I'd say to you, and what I say to a lot of people, analyzing a manager based off of win success rate is incredibly flawed in so many ways. And we could actually sit here probably for an hour and talk about why it's flawed. There's so, you know, in general, the nature of football means that, like, just purely results-based analysis is never going to be effective in finding, like, real truth. So if you're going to analyze, you know, Poch as a manager, looking at managerial success rate, and I'm not just saying this to defend Poch, like, I'd say it about anyone, just sitting there and looking at their managerial, you know, success rate percentage or whatever, like, that's not an effective way to gauge how good a manager is. And it never has been and never will be. That's just the reality. Brucey incoming. I did see the one and only P.S. Michael saying Steve Bruce would be great. And I wasn't too impressed. Like, I'll be real, I wasn't too happy when I did see that. But let's just hope that's all like a smoke screen. Let's hope that's all jokes. Let's hope that's not actually being considered. Carrick has 100% win. Carrick does have an 100% win rate. Give him the job. Carrick at the wheel. Let him write whatever he wants. Manchester United might not thank me for this. Oh, guys, we've actually been through some good times here, man. We've honestly been through some funny, you know, good times the past couple of weeks and year. And I just hope we can get some sort of normality soon. I think it's so important that we get a permanent manager in, because as much as Carrick might be able to help steady the ship for however long, it's not progress. We need to move forward now. Sticking with Carrick and that coaching staff that got Ollie sacked, we're at a standstill. We're not moving forward. And it's important now for us to move forward, because the time's just ticking down. We have players who want to leave the club. We have players who aren't getting any better because they're getting older. you know, we've put ourselves in a situation where we need to win now, and so we gotta go out there and make the right steps towards winning now. So that's all it's about. Let's paper the cracks is what Carrick is. Yeah, and not even that actually. Carrick isn't even let's paper the cracks. Carrick is just like, that's why I don't get mad at like Carrick and all them people, because all they are is an example of just how incompetent the people above them are. Because realistically, we all know Carrick, Phelan, McKenna, like they shouldn't be here anymore, right? They should have all went with Ollie, but they couldn't go with Ollie because the club were like, crap, we don't have anybody to be in charge for this match. Like, so we need you guys to say that's just the harsh truth, innit? Like if the club were actually, you know, competent and ran things like a proper football club, you know, people would have been in place to replace Ollie, and so we would have seen the end of them. 11, Ten Hag or Poch. Personally, I'm more of a fan of Ten Hag, but I just don't think as a fan base we can sit here and be too anal about what manager's going to sit here and come in. As long as they are a good manager, and I think Poch is a good manager, I think they could come in and with the resources available to them, you know, reach a higher ceiling than any other manager has in the past. Now, I will also say, when it comes to Ten Hag, I think because Ten Hag has sort of become the like exciting, like shiny toy in world football, and especially in our fan base, people fail to acknowledge his potential weaknesses. Like, I see people sit there and talk about Poch's weaknesses all day long, and they could write you a whole essay on why Poch isn't the right man for Manchester United. But a lot of these people can't even tell you one, you know, downside potentially of Ten Hag. And there are. As much as he's a good manager and I like him, and he's one of my favorite managers in world football right now, he's not the perfect manager. Like, there would be potential risks and downsides there. So, you know, part of me thinks it's because a lot of people maybe don't actually know as much as they think about him as a manager. And, you know, a lot of what they know about him is based off of the excitement and the hype that's been generated around him on social media, etc. But, you know, Ten Hag is someone who plays a brilliant brand of football, would come in and, you know, given if there's a good structure in place, I think he could be successful, but it's not without its own risks. Definitely not without its own risks. Valverde is Interim. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan just because I think Valverde would potentially fall into that category I talked about earlier, where he could come in, maybe do like a decent job, but because he does a decent job at the end of the season, they just give him the job. And I don't think that would be the right decision to make. Sorry. That's my biggest fear with someone like a Valverde. List the risks. Okay, so with Ten Hag, you have a manager who very much is, you know, he's proved people wrong at his current club, but when he went into Ajax, there were concerns about whether he'd be able to handle the Ajax dressing room. People didn't think he had the personality or the character to be able to manage players at that level. And no disrespect to Ajax, they have brilliant players. I speak nothing but highly of Ajax's players. But if there were concerns about whether he'd be able to handle, whether he had the personality to handle Ajax, what makes you think he's instantly going to come in and be able to handle the personalities and the big characters we have at this club? That's one. When you look at Ajax's current structure, he has the most perfect structure you can have in world football right now. As a manager, all he worries about, or all he has to worry about, is strictly just coaching on the field, right? Doesn't have to worry about transfers. You don't get anybody going, oh, that player's a Ten Hag signing. No, because you have Overmars and Van der Sar. You have brilliant structure at Ajax. Things of clubs are looking to try and replicate. So we all know that our current club, the structure at our club is horrendous. It's poor, right? Like above the manager, you don't know what's going on. So there's no guarantees that Ten Hag would be able to walk into our current club and, you know, actually be able to thrive under such a dysfunctional structure. That's two. And three, when it comes to actually on the pitch, right? We've talked about some intangibles per se, but on the pitch, he is not known to be like great when it comes to in-game management and making tactical adjustments when his plan isn't working, right? There's some managers in football you look at and you go, yeah, great in terms of in-game management. Like Zidane is one that comes to mind, where Zidane, you can argue that he might not set his team up right to start things off, but you know for a fact he'll be able to make the right adjustments in-game. And maybe that comes from just how good of he was as a player, so he can see things in the moment much better than other people can. But Ten Hag, that's been something that's been a weakness of Ten Hag's teams, that when things aren't going to plan, he can't always make the right adjustments. And that's something that people criticize Ollie for, right? So I'm not saying he's on Ollie's level. I think he's clear of Ollie as a manager. But those are 3 examples instantly of just potential weaknesses and risks that you have when Ten Hag comes in. And this isn't to slight Ten Hag. Like I said, he's probably my favorite person for the job. But I'm saying you could do that with almost every manager. Like, you know, there's no manager that is just risk-free. That doesn't really exist. Maybe there's a couple, but maybe that's just because I'm biased. Like, if you told me, like, bring the Nagelsmann in right now, I'd just snap my fingers and do it, right? Same with, like, Klopp, Tuchel, Pep, or whoever. But yeah, that's just it. That's just it. Brilliant insights, Evan. I appreciate that, guys. That's all I'm here to do. You know, I try to keep things fair. Like, I try my best not to be biased. I have my own biases as a human, like we all do. I do try my best to you know, give people, you know, just the facts as they are, without too much of that. So I'd rather take Ten Hag's weaknesses with his weaknesses than Poch. And yeah, like rightfully so. You know, I think that's definitely your prerogative. That's up to you to make that decision. I've made that decision myself, so I can't slight you for that. I'd rather have Ten Hag with some of his weaknesses than other managers, of course. But I think if we're going to have conversations about all these managers, I think we need to be fair and at least acknowledge some of the potential weaknesses, bloody hell, I can't speak English, that come with them. So that's all I'd say on it. I also do want to say something I think that's really important. I made a note of it on my phone here so I wouldn't forget. But I want to say a big rest in peace to Billy Folks, who was a centre-half for United in the 50s and 60s. He passed away on this day in 2013. And as well, a big rest in peace to the one and only George Best, who also passed away on this day in, I believe, 2005. Both legends of this club, both people who, you know, will always be remembered and respected for what they did for this club. And so, you know, just wanted to make sure I say that here while I can. Guys, it's always a pleasure. Is Nagelsmann your favorite coach then? One of my favorite coaches. Like I said, I have my own personal like biases and you know, people who I like and whatnot. And Nagelsmann's definitely someone I'm a huge fan of. It's a shame we probably just will never be in a position to get him. Who knows? Guys, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you. The mods, the people in the chat, the people who don't like me in the chat, and the people who do like me in the chat. Always a pleasure. Be sure to like the video, comment down below who your preferred choice of manager would be. Comment down below as well if you'd take Rangnick over Poch. I think a lot of people probably would take Rangnick over Poch, and understandably, I think the implications of Rangnick coming in signify, you know, better structural change that is more positive. My name's Levin2K. You can catch me on any social media. My @ is right there. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, Twitch, wherever. At Levin2K. It's been a pleasure as always. Mark will be back later, I believe. I'm not too certain because I don't know the schedule. I can't promise you I don't know the schedule. All I know is that I'm here right now, but I'm also gone right now. I'll see you guys all later. Have a good day. Goodbye.